Okay.
But here, this is it. Right here. This is it. Take it. Yeah. And there were some other ones in there. There's others, but they're not as good as that one. That was the best one. Here's some more of them, but they're not so good. But you can see they're the same thing. And they're scattered throughout this cobble, and this is the pieces of it and the and the casts I made. I made casts of that.
What is it?
Okay, well, when I found it, I thought it might be an esoteric organism. I've been suspect that there's esoteric organisms in the Cambrian in Missouri, and my book that I've sent off is that I got the galleys at is those specimens of that. Anyway, I've always been suspect that there's esoteric stuff here in Missouri, and that I'd found an occurrence of it in the Cambrian, and this was the western part of the West Fork of Black River is in Iron County. It's in western Iron County. It's all Cambrian. It's all Cambrian age rocks. And anyway, I broke this open and got this specimen. Particularly this one I just showed you.
Yes.
That one is the one that was very, very clear, and it looks like a lichen. It has a certain look. If you know about lichens, are a symbiosis of a blue-green algae or a prokaryote, a very primitive life form, a Monerian life form, and a fungi. And a fungi is a higher life form. A fungi is what's called a eukaryote, and has cells, and eukaryotes have a cell nucleus. In a prokaryote, there is no cell nucleus.
Yeah.
And a lichen is a combination of a prokaryote and a eukaryote that living together, forming a coexistence.
Symbiotic relationship.
And anyway, lichens are common today. Esoteric fossils are interpreted by a lot of paleontologists, including myself, as being esoteric fossils are puzzling fossils in the late Precambrian, about from 600 million to about 700 million, 730 or some million years ago, that living, and that they're a symbiosis between a prokaryote and a eukaryote. And there was an age of lichens in the late Precambrian, some 650, 700 or so million years ago. There was these developed, and they became a predominant form of life on the earth, living in the ocean, they were marine lichens. They were living in the ocean. They weren't living on land like lichens are today. At least there weren't very many. There may have been some, but there weren't anything like there is today with lichens. But anyway, there's a notable lack of any fossil lichens as to possibly living on the land, like live today. I mean, live today. Lichens all live on the land today.
But not in the Cambrian, there wasn't no.
But in the Cambrian, there doesn't seem to have been. I'm going to cover this up. It's starting to rain.
Yeah.
It would be good to do that.
You can go right here in the garage.
Yeah, let's go in the garage.
Pause.
Anyway, the today lichens are fairly common in the wood, on the land.
Yeah.
There are marine lichens. They're not common, but there are marine lichens.
Yeah.
They do occur. But what is odd is that there are no lichen type of fossils farther back in geologic time, like in the Cambrian
Yeah.
or the Ordovician, are the Precambrian, particularly the late Precambrian. They've not been found. There's never been found, and that makes the reason a lot of paleontologists say, well, that's nonsense to have an age of lichens, because we would find fossils of them.
wouldn't we?
Well, yeah, in a way you might, but maybe people have found them and they're
Nobody knows.
Nobody recognizes them.
That's-
And that's what I think I have.
Yeah,
I think I have a Cambrian lichen,
Yeah.
and possibly a land lichen,
Yeah.
a farm living on an area of land that was sticking up above a little
Yeah.
bit above the shallow water. The Cambrian seas in Missouri were shallow. And I think I might have a lichen. Well, anyway, I wrote up this paper. I wrote it up, and there's the title of it,
Czarina paper.
Czarina paper. And I named it Czarina because on the upper part of the West Fork of Black River, there is Czarina. And Czarina used to have a fire tower on it. They tore the fire tower down. But I went around there and found this, what looks like black sandstone. Essentially, this rock occurs around Czarina. And now that's the lichen. That's the one I found as a cobble in the West Fork of Black River. But it's only about maybe 4 miles from Czarina where I found that. So it's very likely that it may have come from Czarina, because there's this kind of rock on Czarina. And so I named it Czarina. And I wrote it up in this paper, and this is the paper, and sent it off to the Journal of Paleontology. And it went through the review process. Scientific papers go through a referee process of being reviewed.
Yeah.
And I got the thumbs down that it was a pseudofossil.
Because they didn't know what they were talking about.
Well, they think they know what they were talking about. But I got the thumbs down.
Yeah.
No, it was a pseudofossil, and it's nothing. It has no value to paleontology, and I not much to do. But I got thinking about that. You know, if you look at this, if you know fossils, that's a fossil.
Yeah.
That has all the attributes. There's subtle things that you have with fossils, but that has those subtle things,
Yeah.
and those characteristics. That's an impression of some kind of an organism.
Yeah, I'll have to get a better picture of it to put in the video.
And but anyway, I got now I'm a retired college professor in a community college in St. Louis Community College, and I got thinking, you know, I think I've had this before with some papers. I got thumbs down, and a couple of people said, you know why that is, you're at a community college.
Yeah, of
and
course.
these are university people, and they're playing
You're
their
not
game.
smoking cigars with the big leagues.
Right, yeah, you're not right. I guess you're not smoking cigars with big leagues, yeah. Anyway, so, and I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think because Alice Jokelson, who's deceased, paleontologist, he kind of hinted around that what's
And he agreed
going
with you?
on. Yeah. And anyway, this is a very important thing in the history of life.
Yeah.
The age of lichens.
Yeah.
And I think Ediacaran fossils, which are marine, are lichens. They're from this age of lichens.
Yeah.
But there were also lichens on the land.
Yeah.
And I discovered one of them.
Yeah.
I discovered in Iron County, Missouri, this occurrence of these kind of peculiar sediments. This is kind of odd. It looks like sandstone. I thought it was sandstone when I found it, but it turns out to be a form of a very elusive material called chert.
Chert.
And it's granular black chert, and the black is from manganese dioxide. That is not real uncommon to get, and particularly in terrestrial sediments, to get manganese as a pigment in the sediments that are terrestrial, that is land sediments, which is what a terrestrial lichen would be preserved in.
Yeah.
And I think what it is, I think it's a lichen.
Yeah.
It's a Cambrian terrestrial lichen.
Very well could be.
And
you would know.
and but there is absolutely no early lichens, and there should be. Lichens are primitive life forms. They are the first commingling of very primitive monerans along with higher life forms, the eukaryotes, and that happened about, say, around 700 million years, 800 million years, in that period, in the late Precambrian, and and then it persisted on into the Cambrian as a kind of the continuation of an age of lichens. And although marine Ediacaran fossils are not found, well, I won't say they're not found in the Cambrian. They are actually. They're kind of ignored, but because they're more common in the late Precambrian. But anyway, that this is an occurrence of a land lichen from an age of lichens that was a major period in the development of life on the earth.
And they just shut you down on it. Huh?
Yeah, and this should be in the literature.
Yeah, it should be.
It should be in the literature. And if it is a pseudofossil, let this normal scientific arguments hash that out.
Yeah.
And decide whether it is really a pseudofossil or whether it's a bona fide fossil. I'm a fossil hound, and I'm pretty convinced that it's a bona fide fossil. And I bet the reviewers of my paper who did the thumbs down thing, they probably do very little field work. That's usually the way with some of the people that are very, very, very dogmatic about things.
Yeah.
They don't do much field work. They don't like field work people. And I'm a field person. I'm a fossil collector, and I really know them very well. And this is in my book is a bona fide fossil. It's a fossil lichen,
Yeah.
Cambrian fossil lichen.
That it?
Yeah, that's it.